Okay, I think you can hear me now. Hello, hi everyone. My name is Pedro. Welcome to this edition of Perks. Today we're pleased to have Aline Ghilardi from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in Brazil. And Aline's talk is going to be Between Bones, Footprints and Social Media. Before we go to Aline's talk, I'm going to tell you a little bit about today's seminar's format, which is similar to previous weeks. We're going to start with a few slides of welcome and announcements for 5 minutes, which is going to be followed by Aline's talk, which is going to last more or less 30 minutes. After that, we're going to have some questions, moderated Q&A for about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And after that, we're going to transition into a tea time, which is an informal opportunity. An informal conversation is a good opportunity for people to ask Aline about her talk and also to talk about other subjects. And please, if you have any questions for Aline, don't forget to send them via chat to the questions Perks host that today is going to be Chrissy. We'll have some housekeepings for Perks. We'd like to say that Perks values the participation of everyone interested in the paleosciences. And because of that, please remember to abide by our code of conduct during today's seminar. And if you haven't done so, everyone that receives the link for the talks are asked to abide by our code of conduct. But if you haven't done so, please go to our website and do it. During the talk, you shouldn't be able to unmute yourself, but if you do somehow, please remember to keep yourself muted. And again, just a second reminder that you can send questions for questions at Paleoperks host, that today is going to be Chrissy. And similarly, if you notice any technical issue, please send those also to questions at Paleoperks. And about captions, we do have Zoom captions now, and so but Aline's talk is going to have Google Slides captions, so you can choose either to show or hide the Zoom captions, just pressing the CC button down there. And and finally, we also have a Survey Monkey for demographic information. And this Survey Monkey, if you choose to fill it out, it's anonymous and it's optional, but we encourage everyone to do so, even if you have done for previous talks, because it's important information for us. Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce Aline now. She did a bachelor and a master's at the Federal University of São Carlos in Brazil. And then she went to do her PhD at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and then went back to São Carlos for a postdoc. And after that, she started as an assistant professor at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte, where she's still currently. So with this, I'm gonna let Aline take the screen share and start her talk. So have a great talk.
Okay, just to know, are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, closed captions function. Perfect. Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank very much the Paleontology Committee for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here and share with you what I'm currently doing as a young professor here of paleontology here in Brazil. And I must confess, I'm a bit nervous since Pedro told me I will be the first speaker from Brazil. So I'm somehow representing all my colleagues today, and gosh, this is a big responsibility. My burden, my privilege, well, what I wanted to say before starting is that this invitation made me extremely honored, and I sincerely hope that everyone will enjoy this lecture and that we can have a nice chat at the end, okay? Well, after the committee emailed me, I took a look at the previous lectures and thought, whoa, how much cool stuff. How I did not know about the seminars before. Some I could even have used in classes. But well, soon I got worried and started thinking in which way I could contribute to this nice event, right? Well, there is a series of cool works my research group and I are publishing recently. There is also interesting projects that I'm working on right now. But I felt like a mother having to choose her favorite kid. So I finally decided to talk a little bit about everything. So this is a general talk. Well, today I'm inaugurating something here, right? So sorry for disturbing the orchestra a little bit. Well, in particular, I decided to emphasize the work I've been doing, trying to build a bridge between academia and society, popularizing paleontology. So I hope this may inspire some of you, and maybe some of us can work together in the future, okay? To begin, this is a short guide here to this presentation. So first, I believe it's important to set the context because the different geography may be confusing for some. There's no problem. Then I will talk a bit about myself and what I do here in Brazil. So experience a bit of what it's like to be a paleontologist in Brazil and to be a woman paleontologist in Brazil. Third, I will show you some of the academic work I've been doing and all the cool stuff we have been finding out in the last years. And finally, I will talk about how I'm using social media to build a bridge between academia and society and how this is really helping my career. So here is a map of South America. Brazil is highlighted right there. The official language in Brazil is Portuguese, I have to say. But there is more than 150 native languages spoken here by original people. But anyway, Portuguese is our official language, not Spanish. As you can see, Brazil is the largest country in South America. And when I mean Brazil is large, it is large indeed. Brazil is 24 times the size of Germany. And as you can see, it extends over a wide latitudinal distribution, right? It's a continental sized country. You have a very diverse landscape ranging from forests, such as Amazon, you may know, to very dry and and semi-desert regions, such as, for example, the beautiful Northeast Outback where I work now, and that I will show you later. Well, also highlighted here at the Far East Brazil is where I'm currently working right now in the city of Natal, Grande do Norte state. As it was already said, Pedro told you, I'm an assistant professor of paleontology here at the Department of Geology of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte. And the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte is one of the largest and most renowned educational and research institutions here at Northeast Brazil. So here I teach about paleontology, and I also coordinate the dinosaur ecology and osteohistology lab, where, well, the main lines of research are ecology and osteohistology of archosaurs, especially dinosaurs, from Brazil. Well, through these studies, I and my research group developed, well, we seek to better understand the local Gondwana ecosystems and investigate particularly how dinosaur communities have changed through time. But my story here at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte is very recent. I was hired in 2019, 6 months before the pandemic. So you have a clear stratigraphic position there. And after more than a decade traveling and working all over Brazil, from south to north to south. So, well, Brazil is a country of incredible geodiversity. and it contains many distinct sedimentary basins, as you can see. And I had the opportunity to visit most of the basins pictured here during my formative years and during my work. And during all this time, I could also fully feel how my country is diverse in terms of culture and also experience the incredible social abyss that was carved deep in Brazil's since colonialism era. Well, it made me think a lot about my role as a scientist and how it will be very selfish of me to ignore all of that. Just thinking, for example, on my resume, on my career, and well, the richest fossil deposits in Brazil are in the poorest regions of Brazil. And for many decades, fossil material has been removed from these areas by foreign scientists and Brazilian colleagues from wealthier regions and taken away, mostly without an effective return to local communities. And attention here, please. Return is not to leave gifts or money, but to build something together with the community, discuss, substantiate actions that may alleviate social problems of these areas. And from that moment on, a new journey has started for me. And I gotta tell you something before I proceed. All my training as a scientist was financed by the state. Here in Brazil, the best institutions of higher education are public. And I was able to study in some of those institutions. And even though I came from a family that had no higher education and did not have a lot of money also, I had my privileges for being a white person in a country where a structural racism is perpetuated, right? So I felt obligated to give a return to society for all the investment in my training as a scientist. And in addition to that, we must remember science is a human product, which serves not only to understand the world and the cosmos we are in, but to alleviate human suffering, right? So I started working on it. In all the regions that I had the opportunity to work, to collect fossils, I interacted strongly with the community, having the patience to sit, to listen, to learn, to talk to local authorities, to go to radio, answer questions from the public, to give talks, to produce and give away educational material, to talk with kids in schools, to train local teachers, being always available to talk with the civil community. And many times I heard scientists came here, take things away. They promised to come back and they never do. We don't even know if they found anything interesting. And you know what? It saddened me to hear that. It saddened me. I didn't want to be that type of scientist. So I have worked hard not to be. After visiting a region, I insist on going back to tell the community what I discovered and to return something to them. This little one you see here is Alison. Alison is from Norte, south back of Brazil. He bravely helped me to collect this material you see here. We will nickname this material later as Souza Titan. And here I am showing Alison the dinosaur he helped me to collect in a book and inviting him to visit the local museum where the material was put on display that week. Well, after that day, Alison told me he wanted to be a doctor so he could help his family. And since then, I'll tell you, he's studying hard to do it. Well, it's about being human. But okay, letting this aside for a bit, what about my academic work? Do you have time while talking to the public to do your research? What you have developed all over these years? Well, since science is a human product with humans, I must confess here, it was not an easy journey. Even with all the privileges of a white person, being a woman in academia, in an area that's still largely dominated by men, it's not an easy task. And add to that, please, being a woman venturing out in the wild in an essentially sexist world. So trying to communicate also with the public, this is even more difficult. And yes, I faced all kinds of harassments. I fought depression during my doctorate. And to this day, I wonder if I'm not an imposter, if I'm not too bad at everything I did and do, and if I'm not here talking to you just by luck. But these moments come and these moments go. I know they reflect a serious scar, and they haunt me and sometimes paralyze me. But, well, there's nothing else to do, right? Despite just keep going. And, well, to show you that I kept going, I gathered here some of my latest contributions that you may find interesting, just to get an idea of what I've been doing for the past few years as a researcher. And after that, I'll get how social media is also helping me to keep doing my research. Well, before talking about the recent work, I couldn't help, to comment on my very first paper contribution, product of my master's. I worked with megafauna fossils, so mammal fossils from the Pleistocene, found in karst deposits in southeastern Brazil. Even though southeastern Brazil, where the city of São Paulo, I think you know it, is, well, since this region is the most populated of Brazil, there are still wild areas there, like this one you see in the picture, and they still keep many secrets. So my first work was there exploring and describing new caves and describing new fossil material from megafauna of the Pleistocene of Southeast Brazil. Even though today I work mainly with dinosaurs and Mesozoic strata and other Mesozoic vertebrates anyway, the beginning of my career was with this Pleistocene beasts. So I'm paying my tribute here, right? But joking apart, this was just to encourage you, there, young career scientists who feel sometimes you cannot change the course of acting along your journey. Yes, you can, okay? Just encourage you there. But, well, I gathered a few work here and I'm gonna talk a bit about them and the projects behind them. And since I told you about Alison, that young kid I showed you some slides before, I have to talk about Souza Titan. So, well, we found this interesting material you see here, prospecting on the internet, really on the internet. So initially I found a photo of this bone on an internet blog, and the photo was saying it was taken somewhere near the Souza municipality, Northeast Brazil, which is a region where similar things like this bone had never been found before. So we went there to investigate, and bingo, this is the first dinosaur bone from a sedimentary basin where only fossil footprints were recorded before. Well, the Souza region, we call here the Vale do Rio do Peixe Basin Complex, okay? It's a lot of difficult names there, but anyway, the Souza region is famous for its abundant dinosaur tracks. It's a mega track site. These dinosaur tracks were made known by Giuseppe Leonardi, you may know, an Italian priest in paleontology. He's widely known. And well, I had already visited this region a few times and worked at that and had never seen something similar to that bone. No body fossils had been found there. And since we only had that bone, we had to torture it. So it could tell us its story, right? And we did it. The work with Sousa Titan, the nickname of this bone, okay, it's not a formal species, it's only a nickname, was my second work on osteohistology of vertebrates. And together with my husband, who is also paleontologist here in Brazil, currently working on his PhD thesis, well, we combined traditional techniques and histology and found that this material belonged to a juvenile titanosaur forms. We then calculated the size, carefully described the bone tissue, and realized it was one of the youngest titanosaur forms to have its osteohistology described at the time. So it was an interesting material that when I studied it, it grew from its original region, okay? It took 2 years to study this bone to complete this work, and then the material was returned. As you remember that picture of me with the book, returning the book to Alison, when we returned the material to the Sousa region, and it was displayed in the local museum. So with this work, I started to develop an interest, not only on the footprints I was originally interested in the Sousa region, but started to look bones with, well, a different pattern. And the line of research we developed in our lab today with osteohistology started here. The fundamentals were here. Well, another recent work I think it's worth mentioning, it's about a specimen that was originally illegally collected in the Arariti area and traded, and it was under guard of a family, and a poor family in Northeast Brazil. During our expeditions, Tito, my husband, okay, he had the opportunity to talk with this family and explain why that fossil, that specific specimen, will be better in a museum than, for example, where it was, just by the TV and the small house. And the family donated the material to the museum, to our laboratory, and we had the opportunity to study this interesting specimen. So after a few analyses, it was recognized as possible spinosaurid bone, and we studied in also it under thin sections. The thin sections are, I didn't add it, sorry. Under thin section, we tomographed the specimen and discovered it had interesting adaptations that were only observed before in Spinosaurus from Morocco, right? And well, this bone is from the Araripe Basin in Brazil, which is interesting, evolutionary speaking, because it is a form that precedes Spinosaurus in age. And this was really cool because we could understand how this interesting adaptation of osteosclerosis evolved in this group of dinosaurs even before Spinosaurus aegypticus developed, well, even more interesting semi-aquatic adaptations. So this work was published in 2018, and this beautiful art from Julio Lacerda resumes what we found out. So those lower leg bones had this higher density interpreted as osteosclerosis, which is an adaptation that can help organisms with semi-aquatic habits. we could not assign the material to any particular type of spinosaurid already known from Darwinipidazing, but anyway, it is a spinosaurid. It has some anatomical characteristics exclusives of the group. So that's it. A very recent work I published with colleagues is this. It's actually this month. The final version of it is being published. So it's blood parasites and found inside the dinosaur bone, inside the titanosaur bone from the Cretaceous of Brazil. Not only that, but we found an interesting pathology in this bone and described it using things. So, and further than this, it showed out that this interesting specimen, we found several parts of it. It's a nanoid titanosaur form. So it's a saltosaurine. It's a nanoid form of saltosaurine. And the new species is currently being described, but we already described, so this lower part of the titanosaur bone here, we display this interesting pathology with curious forms inside the vascular canals that we associated probably with microorganisms, maybe parasiting this titanosaur. So this very tiny titanosaur had all over its bones those callosities, those tuberosities you see here. So we tomographed the material to understand how those pathologies developed. Then we made thin sections of those interesting pathologies and described how this disease evolved. It showed out to be a kind of bone infection. And when we look carefully on this histological material, we identified this strange always inside the canals. And we tested this form chemically. We tested this form morphologically, and it had a pattern, so showing that it was mineralized. It had no signs of, it was not chemically homogeneous. So, and it also had a morphology, very conservative morphology. So interpreted, we cannot say for sure, but we interpreted it as probably a microorganism preserved inside the vascular canals and possibly a parasitic form. It's under study, it's currently under study. We have news about it, but I'm not going to release spoilers here, but it's an interesting form. It went to the synchrotron for better imaging, for better analysis, and we have some interesting news about this coming out soon. But okay, I only told you about the bone part, right? What about the footprint part, Aline, that you say you will tell on your presentation? Well, besides working with osteohistology, originally, my main speciality is working with the tetrapod tracts. So here, it's one example of work I've been developing with tracts preserved in an Aeolian environment from Southeast Brazil. So since my undergraduate studies, I'm working with those footprints of dinosaurs and something similar to mammalia forms preserved in huge dune profiles of the Botucatu Formation. This one in particular was interesting because showed different locomotory behavior in mammal type producer that inhabited those dunes in the past. So Leonardi first described those marks as Brasilicnium elusivum, but they have been found in other deposits all over the world. But there are many Brazilian tracks that show that display a different behavior while walking on the dunes. And this particular behavior we studied carefully and we found that it displayed sometimes as a way to avoid predation or to hunt for its prey. So here we describe this new echinataxon referring to this different locomotory behavior, and we call this track Brasiliensium saltatorium. This is, sorry for the mammal people, this is just an interpretation, okay? I also like very much to illustrate my work, so it's just an interpretation. Mammal people don't throw stones on me right now. So here's another work we recently published. So it's a new echinataxon, also from the Botucatu Formation, a large mammaliaform trackway, also associated probably with mammaliaforms producer, also from the Botucatu Formation. So enhancing our knowledge about this desert fauna that inhabited Brazil just before the open of the South Atlantic Ocean. I also been working not only this mammaliform tracks works you've seen here were product of a student I had the opportunity to supervise. So it was a great student. We have been working together for many years, and these were product of his master's and thesis while I was helping to supervise him. But apart from that, I've been working with the theropod and the ornithischian footprints found also in the Zeolian environment, and hopefully very soon I'll publish some more information about the interesting ecological structure we had on this ancient desert. Besides that, right after Gondwana breakup, we have an interesting ichnofauna represented in the Sousa area. This very same area where the Sousa titan was found. Well, I'm also describing extensively track material from there. So I know, for example, that Leonardi will be soon releasing a book about this area, and I think I have pretty much more information also to add to that. And soon, Sousa region will be very famous all around. I have been doing a great effort, especially to digitize all those tracks that are currently being destroyed by the equatorial climate here. So there are beautifully preserved tracks that can help us understand the diversity of dinosaur communities here in Gondwana that will be soon released in the form of a monography. And okay, so this is just a little taste of what I have been doing here with bones and footprints, but
Aline,
I want you to know is that
give you the time warning.
It's just to give a message of how social media is helping me also with my research. Well, besides doing the strict academic work, so giving lectures, supervising students, publishing papers, I'm also interested in communicating with people. You know that sometimes you don't have financial aid to go whenever you like to the places you are collecting fossils, right? But I still want to keep in touch with the local community and tell them what I'm doing, what I'm discovering with the things I collected there. So social media, internet in general, but social media nowadays is a very nice way to keep in touch. And you know that you are in the middle of a pandemic, and you know how internet and social media have been important for us in the last year and a half or so. And so I've made a great effort to, besides researching, also be active in social media. Believe me, being active in social media is time away from this research. So I understand that maybe I have the great productivity that some colleagues have. But anyway, I'll tell you why it's still being active in social media is helping me as a researcher. So here's just to give an idea and finish. The first thing I tried to act as a communicator was through the producing blogs, blog posts. Initially, this blog was hosted by science blogs. Bloggers, do you remember that? So, okay, it was hosted in science blogs, but after the extinction of the platform, it went solo. So in this platform, basically, we have more space to tell people the whole story behind the research. But also, new medias have been, well, showing up in the last years, showing more importance in the last years. And also, I've been working a lot with YouTube. So producing content for YouTube, not only about our particular research. So here are some of the videos we did to disseminate, to popularize the discoveries we made in the last decades, but also videos about general aspects of paleontology that people may be interested. So for example, just to give an idea, today we have more than 5,000 people per month accessing our blog, more than 40,000 people subscribed in our YouTube channel, sharing content, commenting, well, building something together. And for me, for a channel in Portuguese, talking only about paleontology, this is a milestone. And for example, some of the videos you see here from our works reach something around 20,000 views. So that's a lot to return for society. That's an awesome thing to see your research reaching so many people. But not that, if in other social media, more intimate social media like Twitter or Instagram, for example, had opened opportunities for me, not only for reaching and talking and building something with the community, but also to building links with other paleontologists. So many cooperations I did in last years were a direct product for being active in social media. So I really invite you, young career researchers that may be afraid to interact in the social media. If you want to, don't be afraid, just go there and reach for it. It could have nice and interesting results for your career also. And just to finish, not only social media made me look for other ways to communicate with people. So through products, through producing movies, short movies, and games, electronic games, board games, books, and educational material that we work together with the social media display we have today. So this is engaging people also to help fund our research. So social media and all the byproducts of it is helping today in this huge science crisis we have in Brazil due to the current government to give money to keep my research. So there are ways that social media can help you and can help you with your career, not only by connecting people, but also by raising money so you can develop it wherever you want, you study wherever you want. And finally, I want to just finish with a message. So from a colleague, and well, communicating science, being social media, and so on, it's about promoting a discussion with society. It's about inspiring future generations of scientists, and that's what I want to do. I want to invite more people to science. I want especially to invite more women to science to do research with me. it's important to, they can have an example that they can do it, right? And finally, I hope you really to join this conversation. We can chat a bit right now. I understand it was a bit compressed, but Pedro, I'm sorry for like taking more than 5 minutes to finish. And that's it. I really hope we can chat right now, and please join me to this effort of communicating and popularizing science also.
Yeah, great talk, Aline. Thank you. I do have a few questions here that I'm gonna tell you, and you can answer them. First question is question and comments from Catherine. She says, as a fellow master student struggling with depression and health issues too, I appreciate you and your amazing work in spite of the obstacles. And she asks, is there a story meaning behind the nickname Souza Titan? So explaining the name Souza Titan.
Okay. Yes, there is. In fact, it's the name of the region where it came from. So given identity to the fossil makes local people feel a connection with it. And feel a connection means preserving, protecting. And that's why we were interested in, since we couldn't name the species, obviously it was only a leg bone, but we were, well, interested in making a connection. So that's why we nicknamed the bone. And nowadays, for example, there is a organization of people there from the region that is called the Souza Titan Movement for the preservation of paleontological heritage, local heritage. And this is awesome. There is no paleontologist involved. This is the people, because they felt connected with the name, right? So that's only Souza Titan. I would love to call it Alison Titan, but then other people would be, oh, why not me, right?
Yeah, it's a great story. And also a commenting question from Roy Plotnik. He says that you are a very talented paleo artist. Can you say how much your art has helped in communicating your science?
That's a wonderful question. And I will answer, well, let me say it helped not only in communicating science, but also in doing science. Because when you try to picture something, you pay attention to details. And this is awesome, especially for taxonomists. So if there's a taxonomist there, please take some time to make drawings and to really observe your material. So I think it's fundamental for anyone who works with biology, natural sciences to, well, engage in art at some time. So it gives you new perspectives, new ways of observing the same material, right? So not only in research, but now speaking a little bit about how it helped me to communicate science, I will show you right in this slide here. I promoted during my career, how do you say that? Many contests, paleo art contests, to promote and engage young and young people in science. So generally, kids love drawing, right? So it's a different way of telling difficult things to them. So sometimes you have many difficult words in a paragraph in your paper. You can just translate that in terms of art. And then it gets easy to talk with those guys. And that's why I always engaged with art and promoted, for example, those paleo art contests to invite people to talk about paleontology with me. And I mean, it was not art context, it was paleo art context. So we gave talks about how to be accurate while drawing dinosaurs or whatever was the animal of the thematic of this context. and people engaged, were asking questions, and then delivered beautiful art that, well, helped us to populate our bestiary of Brazilian fossils, and also invite more people to become a scientist.
Right. I would like to also remember people that they can send their questions to questions@paleoperks host. That is Chrissy today. But I also have some other questions here. Another one is great talk. The diversity of tracks in that desert ecosystem is fascinating. I was wondering if there is any evidence of individuals interacting with each other.
Wow, it's so hard to tell that. We do, in fact, have some trails that are subparallel or parallel that may indicate that organisms were walking side by side, especially with the mammalian footprints, the mammal-like footprints, and also with some ornithischian footprints that that can be attributed to Ornithopoda in general. So besides that, we also have an interesting track of a small mammal-like organism interacting with an insect. Well, the insect disappears. I don't know what that means, but the insect was there, they cross path, and the insect disappears. Well, I cannot for sure say that was an interaction, perhaps. Well, it was a beetle, it just flew away, I don't know. But we have some interesting interactions that were already mentioned and or described in works, not by me, but by my former advisor, my former supervisor there, Marcelo Fernandez. So thanks for the question.
Another question is also related to the tracks. I think you mentioned that the first mammalian, I think that's it, tracks showed evidence of avoiding predators. And I was wondering how you could tell that.
We cannot, tell for sure. I think it was because of my rusty English. I may have sounded that, but what we have, for example, is a nice trail that shows walking behavior, and suddenly it starts, running. Something happened, we don't know what. It could be predation, it could be, it was pursuing a prey, it could be anything. But looking at actual deserts, we observed organisms generally exhibiting this behavior or avoiding a predator or pursuing its prey. So it was a general interpretation. Sorry if it sounded otherwise.
Yeah, makes sense. And also another question is, you mentioned that the tracks are being destroyed by the climate. And I was curious if they were just recently exposed, and is that by human activity?
Well, yes, there is human activity involved, but we have to think about we live here in the equatorial tropical area. Most of Brazil, at least, is like in the tropical area. So natural effects of intemperance, eroding, rain are washing away those beautifully preserved tracks. So naturally, most of them were exposed decades. They were described decades ago, and they are exposed since then. There are still new footprints being exposed right now, but most of the classical track sites there are known from the 70s, the 60s. And so since then they're exposed, and people keep on going and keep on releasing cattle over those track sites, keep on using those areas, those open areas to move vehicles So all those activities are helping to destroy those natural, beautifully preserved tracks. So, well, that's why we were moving the society from Sousa municipality to understand the importance of those tracks and to, well, help preserve them. And the way we could help them was not only by describing those tracks and telling them the importance, but also by digitizing all of those important records. So all those incredible effort we had digitizing those tracks will be freely available. So researchers from anywhere can study them, but that's the way we can help. Since, for example, there are hundreds, if not thousands of tracks there, we cannot simply take them away and put them in a museum. There are thousands of tracks. So a way of making sure this information at least is preserved is to digitize them. And after or like strong effort there, people understood that this is a very important heritage of the community of the region, and they could, well, take advantage of that through tourism, for example, and so on. So since we were there, we are helping them in ways they could preserve. For example, how they could build structures to at least protect the most important sites, how they could avoid activities that could destroy those tracks. So, but it's, those tracks are exposed over like many kilometers, square kilometers. So it's hard, right? And not only in public land, but especially in private land. And sometimes that's very complicated. That's why being educated in how to communicate with people, how to communicate with local authorities may help us also to, well, make ourselves understandable for those people also that have, may have other interests.
Nice. I don't see any other questions coming, so I think I'm gonna take over the screen share so we can finish talk. Yes. So yeah, thank you again, Aline, for an excellent talk. It was amazing. Thank you very much. So I really enjoyed it as a Brazilian. I would like to remember people again that we have a SurveyMonkey for demographic information. The link is in the chat again. And if you can, please join us for next week's talk from Sibu Sisu. He's going to be talking about dinosaurs and decolonizing science writing. And next week at our regular time. And yeah, so this is a reminder that the time zone is there was a lot of recent time zone changes, daylight saving times, but next week we're gonna the talk's gonna be at our regular time, so 1500 UTC. And so now we're gonna be transitioning into tea time. It's a good opportunity to learn more about Aline, her research and her work, to meet new friends and also talk to older ones, discussing the talk itself with other people with different backgrounds, and also to a good chance to have a chat before going back to your regular day. And before we go to tea time, we'll have a 2-minute timer so people can go to the bathroom, get some water, something else to drink. So I'm going to start a timer and you're going to be back in 2 minutes.